Welcome back to our 94th episode of the Launcher Farm Show, where I interview Gerrick Wayne, who's an email copywriting specialist. In this episode, Gerrick and I discuss the 3 principles of human bonding. That's the real secret to sending emails that get read, boost your sales, and avoid the spam filters all at the same time. We also talk about why writing fancy corporate-sounding emails is one of the worst emails you could ever send to your list. And we also share a little-known writing tool he uses to eliminate writer's block and go from draft to send-ready emails in record time. And Gerrick shares a super easy way to segment your list to create content that resonates with the right person at the right time in your farm. And we talk about how you can inspire your subscribers to take action and pick you as their agent, without ever annoying your email list or spending hours writing emails. Plus, we talk about we share a ton of other ideas you can use to grow your geographic farm. So be sure to check out this episode, like and subscribe, and enjoy the episode with Gerrick. Welcome back to another episode of the Launcher Farm Show. I'm your host, Ryan Smith, and today we've got a great guest. It's Gerrick Wayne. He is an email copywriting specialist. Gerrick has done some incredible things, and we're going to talk about some of those accomplishments he's done, and he's going to bring some value and how we can increase our effectiveness with emails and how we can use that in our farm. So Gerrick, take a second, tell us a bit about yourself and why you're here.
Yeah. First off, I want to say I appreciate you for having me, Ryan. So basically, my background is I'm an email marketing consultant. So I help coaches, course creators, and basically any type of expert-based business or client-based business with a higher ticket program. And what I do for that business is that I help manage and optimize their email list so they can make more revenue and add to their bottom line. So when I started out, I actually have been doing this for about 3 years now. So I started out working for an agency that's based in Toronto, where I got my first exposure writing emails for a Klaviyo email marketing coach. So for those of you that don't know what Klaviyo is one of the email service providers that is online. Basically, that's mostly used for e-commerce. But a lot of the principles of email marketing, I was really taught by working with that first client. Then fast forward a few months later, I started working as a direct response copywriter for a real estate agent based in Toronto. Now, I really can't remember the exact list size that I was working with, but in the time that we worked together, I was able to increase his overall pipeline value from $2 million to over $8 million in just a single year. And right now, I am part of one of the biggest direct response ad agencies in the world, where we help 6 to 7 figure info product experts scale with Facebook to $5,000 per day. So yeah, that's kind of where I am right now.
That's awesome. And some of those numbers may sound big and scary. And for some of the agents listening, we're going to talk about some things that you can absolutely implement on a smaller scale and take it to a bigger scale if you want to. And I think it's important to go back to exactly that, is that it doesn't have to be this amazing thing. You don't have to have 1 million people in your email list. You can make some very small changes, some very small tweaks to your emails to get big results that a lot of agents may not even think about or may not even know about. So let's talk about the basics of emails and some of those fundamental things, and then we'll dive into some strategy. So give us kind of the fundamentals of what you think is important when it comes to email marketing.
Yeah, so I think the number one important thing is the philosophy of email. So when you say email usually when people think about it, they would usually think about, oh, I shouldn't send this because it's going to be annoying. Or maybe they're going to say, oh, I should only send maybe one email per month, or maybe one email every 3 months. And that is something that it's a big misconception when it comes to email, because they don't really understand that email is actually bigger than just a marketing channel. It's actually a bonding channel. So what I'm about to talk with you today, or what I'm about to share with you today, is that when we talk about email, the biggest challenge that that most real estate clients face that I've worked with is that how do you create emails where your subscribers like you better, and how do you get them to read your emails without annoying them? And the solution to that is actually applying the principles of what I call as human bonding. So I've learned this from a lot of mentors, but basically when it comes to email, there are two basic principles that you want to follow, which is frequency and the depth of your experience. So when we talk about frequency, it focuses more on the people that we like and trust the most. So the people that we love and we like the most in life are the people that we see and hear every day.
Mm-hmm.
And when it comes to, the depth of experience, it's more about the people that we share experiences with. Meaning, if we share more experiences, the deeper the experiences that we share with them, the deeper that connection. So again, when it comes to sending emails to your list, it's all about frequency and it's all about the depth of experience. So talking about frequency, when we say frequency, how frequent are you sending out emails, right? Do you send them every day? Do you send them once a week? Do you send them once a month? Now, that actually depends on what you're trying to do. If you are trying to, for example, let's say you are trying to sell a listing, for example, or a condo, then you would promote that over and over for a span of like 7 days. But when you're trying to like provide content, it would depend on you on how frequent you want to mail your list. But the general rule is the more frequent that you share your experiences and you share your stories with the people inside your list, the stronger that bond grows, and the easier it is to convince your prospects or your subscribers to become buyers.
Yeah, and I think that a lot of agents shy away from sending it more often. They think, like you said, they're afraid of annoying someone, they're afraid of sending information, and they're worried that they're going to unsubscribe. So maybe they've grown their list and they think, well, if I start sending more, I'm going to lose people. And I've always said that that's the important thing. You should be losing people. The people who don't care, who didn't really pay attention to you in the first place, are good to leave. And I don't know if you know Chuck Charlton, but he's been on my show and he's a top agent in the area. And he talked about years ago when he was working with Dean Jackson, and he said we're going to email them every day for like 5 days a week. And Chuck said he was terrified to do that because he was going to lose a bunch of people. And he said, I lost like 20% of my people off my list right out of the gate. And he said, but the people that stuck around were more engaged, more wanting to hear from him more, and wanted to build those relationships with him. And he got more out of that, even though with a smaller list, a 20% less size of a list, he got more from that. So it's the frequency is something that I think a lot of agents get hung up on. And in reality, like you said, it builds more relationship, builds more trust with a smaller amount, but it absolutely adds value.
Yeah. And to add to what we're seeing is the problem with, not sending enough emails is that your subscribers will actually forget about you. And there's a higher chance that you get more unsubscribes versus mailing more frequently. So just to set an example of this is that I got an email the other day from a guy that I must have joined, probably years ago. And I already forgot that I was already part of his list. So when he sent out an email after like 3 years, he was like, okay, who is this guy? It's like I kind of compare it to that to your roommate. You remember that ex-roommate you have. What if he one day pops up in your couch and he sleeps immediately? Like, okay, who are you? What are you doing here? It's like it's kind of like that feeling you get when you have a stranger inside your house. It's kind of the same thing with email and the nuances. And then when you said getting unsubscribes, you really don't have to worry about unsubscribes unless if it's like more than 1%. So if you take like 1 out of 100, it's okay. But bigger than that usually would be like symptoms of spam. So that's the only time that you worry about it, because in email, what you really want to focus on are the people that actually want to hear from you. The people that want to grow a bond with you, that want to hear from you every day, versus the people that don't. Because right now, that's the thing that you should focus on are the people that want to build a relationship with you, that want to hear from you every day.
So I want to ask then, how would you recommend starting that if you already have a list? Because I know if you're starting a list from scratch, it's easier to say, hey, here's the frequency, here's how often I send, here's what I send. If someone has a list and they have been very nonchalant with it and haven't sent it very often, and now they're going to start to do that, what would you recommend? Would you just jump right into that? Would you kind of start doing it more frequent, or how would you get someone to say, we want to scale up to that? Would they just jump in, or what would you recommend?
Yeah, so If you were so there's two types of lists. If it's a new list, it would be a different strategy. And if it's like a dead list, and what I mean by a dead list is that a list that hasn't been mailed for like 3 months, 2 months, for like 12 months, a year, more than 6 months, it's actually what what I consider as a dead list. So
Right.
when you try to revive a dead list, it's gonna be a different process. So if you do have, for example, an email list that you haven't mailed before, or that you haven't mailed in a while, what you want to do is do it gradually. Like remind them who you are, why they're in your list, and then encourage them on that first email to unsubscribe. Why? Because you don't want to force people that don't want to be part of your life, or don't want to really, they don't want to hear from you anymore. You don't want to annoy them. So those are the people that you want to remove from your list. In that way, you're left with quality subscribers that are actually that have a higher chance of converting, versus focusing on people that that already forgot about you. So it's the same analogy with your friend. If you haven't heard from him in a while, you tell him, hey, what's up, how's your life going? But in a different sense, what you're telling them is, hey, you subscribed to this list because I offered you, I offered you a lead magnet about this listing before. I'm sorry if I haven't mailed to you, but I'll do a pretty good job from now on. And then you go from there. And then I guess in terms of frequency, I would suggest like you email them maybe once or twice per week, and then don't sell them anything for like 2 weeks. Just build that relationship. Ask them what they're going through, ask them their challenges, and then create content out of that. And then right after that, you can immediately, once you felt that these people are replying to you, and you felt that, okay, right now we've built that bond back, I think I can promote back to my list. So I guess that's my advice if you have like a dead list.
Great. Awesome. And so as far as frequency goes, where is a kind of a normal range for frequency? Because I've heard people say different things. I've seen people say once a month, once a week, a few times a week. Where do you find is that best or sweet spot to be sending?
Well, it really depends on your goal. If your goal is to like potentially launch a product, well, if you're gonna launch a product, or maybe promote for example, a condo, or for example, promote a house, or any land, then it's gonna take more emails to get more sales. So in that sense, you're gonna send more emails in that time period. But if we're talking about content, what I try to advise with my clients is that try to mail them as often as possible. Your goal is to get to 5 to 7 times per day, but that's already at the maximum, meaning you already have a very engaged list, and you already have people that have bought from you previously and are staying in your list and are listening to you. So you just gauge it off of, who are the people that bought and how many people have not bought. So based off of that, you take a look at your metrics. And I know that, in terms of frequency, what you want to do is you want to focus on getting to that 5 to 7 days a week, right? So what you want to do is you want to gradually get there. Like, for example, if you have a very engaged list, like for example, you identify people who actually open your emails, you identify people who don't open your emails, and you mail to that person, or you mail to the people that are more engaged to your list. So I usually call them like 30-day engagers, people who actually read my emails in the past 30 days.
Yep.
So if you segment that out, and you see that your open rates are consistently getting to 20 to 30 to 40%, and they're getting higher and higher, you can then engage with the people that don't read your emails.
Right.
So those people that you can segment that out as people that are what we call unengaged people that don't click, people that don't open your emails. That way you have this category of people that, okay, these are the people that really want to listen to my emails, and these are the people that don't want to listen to my emails. And then once you get a grasp of like, okay, my open rates right now, because the average open rate that you want to get to is around 20 to 30%. 15 is like okay, but really when it comes to like deliverability, it's like the sweet spot is 20% and above.
Yep.
And when you get there, that's the time that you can they can say, okay, I can mail more people. Let me see if I can mail to my entire list this day. And then let's see if how many more people get added to this
Right.
engaged segment.
Yeah.
So I guess it's a tricky thing to explain if I'm not if I can't really get inside the ESP or the software. But my advice is get your base your frequency based on the data that
Right.
you have with your list.
Exactly.
Like and then focus more on sending to the people that are actually opening your emails, and not and really try to limit those that aren't opening.
Yeah, and I think there's an important thing that a lot of agents don't consider when they look at email marketing is they want to just do a one-time email. They want to do a blanket email that they send to everyone. And the reality is, if you want to get good at it, if you want to get the most from your list, you have to segment, like you said. You have to break it down. You have to send different content to different people. And if you're just sending one email or the same email to everybody at the same frequency, you are going to upset some people. You're going to lose some people. You're going to engage some people. You won't be sending enough to certain people. And by learning to use the metrics and learning to see who opens it, you can get way more from the same amount of people. This is where people don't realize it's like for every 100 people, instead of getting one transaction, you can get 2 transactions with just some simple tweaks. You don't need more leads or more people in your database. You just need to learn to use that software and use the metrics to do that. But I find it scares a lot of agents because they're afraid of looking at the numbers. They just want to go do stuff and not have to worry about the numbers. But those numbers can make the big difference. And just before we started recording, I was sharing my story years ago when I got started. I started with my open rates and it was like 18%. And over the couple months, I started tracking every email, seeing what was working, what wasn't working. I changed my headlines, I changed my copy, and I got it up to like 41% open rate, and same amount of people, but now I've more than doubled the amount of people that were reading my emails. And those small tweaks can be huge. And like you said, if you find the people that are engaged, you can send them more. If you find people who aren't as engaged, you don't have to send them as much, or you can change the message to those people to get them. And I've seen people do that, like, hey, haven't heard from you in a while. Are you still alive? Are you okay? Or, hey, did I drop the ball? And you wouldn't send that to the people who are opening your message every single day. So you have to take some time to figure that out. So what advice would you give to people who are trying to create multiple different types of copy, and how do you manage that? Because I find it can be overwhelming for a lot of agents to try to come up with different emails and different campaigns and things like that.
Yeah, so one of the things that I try to do whenever I consult with a client is I take a look at the first email that they send out to their list.
Mhm.
So what I ask them to do is I suggest to them that whenever someone opts into your list, you should ask them by asking what I call as a survey email or a reply email.
Mhm.
You ask them, what are the struggles or the biggest challenges that you're facing? So for example, if I were to write an email for a real estate agent, I would say this, hey, first name, quick question. When it comes to buying a condo, what's your number one single biggest challenge?
Mhm.
And then what you can do is you take those responses, place them on a sheet, place them on a Google sheet, and then you look for commonalities or similar themes in their responses. And then that's where you get the ideas for your emails.
Mhm.
Because right now, right then and there, you already have an unlimited resource of content and email ideas that your market actually wants to hear about. For example, if they say, okay, is this condo really worth it? How do I know? Well, you can create lead magnets. You can create emails teaching them how to create a nice valuation, or how big an ROI will they get from that particular condo if you answer that. So as you can see, it's not about coming up with genius ideas that I have to say this smart thing about. So it's not about you. When it comes to copy, it's not about you, it's about your market.
Exactly.
And when you send out that survey email, you immediately have this shortcut. Oh, that's what they want to hear from me. That's what I want to then that's what I'll share. And when you do that, it goes back to that rapid bonding process of email, wherein because you shared your experiences and because you shared your insights, people will likely to hear and are excited to hear about what you have to say.
Exactly. And the content you're creating is something that's relevant to what they want, not just
Yeah.
if they're worried about this and you're sending them something about this, there's a disconnect. If they're worried about this and you can send them that information, or they have a question about that and you can answer it, it becomes that much easier to go, oh, hey, I've added some value to you. And they know that they can trust you. So that's a big part of it. Now, I want to ask you about sharing your own personal experience in your emails, because I find some people are hesitant to do that. They want it to be very cold, very corporate, very salesy. How do you find that balance, and what are some things that people can do to create emails that are warm, or is that even something you suggest?
Yeah. I always, whenever I talk with a client and they're asking me, what's your, what do you think about, should we send more emails? And I always tell them this, the most important lesson that I got from my mentor, which is, your money doesn't grow on trees, but it does grow on your list. So that's the kind of mentality that I share with them. And when it comes to, what type of emails, or what sort of emails will get their, or what's the methodology behind how do I get these emails, how do I get my subscribers to really, to really get excited about hearing from me, is the way I do it is that I mail them in a way that entertains, educates, and then I put a pitch in the end. So one of the keys to getting people excited to read your emails is to wrap them in an entertaining fashion. Think of it as like when you're watching a show in Netflix or you're watching a show on TV, what's the number one reason why you want to watch it? It's because it's entertaining, it's interesting. It's the same mentality with email. So when you're writing emails, you want to really avoid dry, boring content that you can just get off a blog or a YouTube video. No, I'm not saying that you shouldn't use those things. What I'm saying is you use those things as an inspiration where you get little nuggets of information or insights that can be very short, and then you wrap them in an entertaining manner. And how you do that and how you entertain with email is you use stories, analogies, and metaphors. So let's say, for example, that I'm a writer. So my problem is I have writer's block. So the number one thing that I would do to create an email that would resonate with my market is I would find an analogy or a metaphor that would illustrate that lesson that I'm trying to make. So for example, when it comes to writing block, I would try to pinpoint the idea of constricting an idea, because when it comes to writer's block, that's the number one thing is you're constricting an idea and you're being critical with yourself. So for example, I would use the analogy of a hose, because if you grip a hose too tight and if you bend it, you constrict it, you cut off the flow and the water doesn't come out. And then I would connect it, and they say that it's the same with your ideas. It's the same way with your writing your emails, writing your copy. Because if you just don't loosen up, if you just let go, loosen up, and you open up the channel, water will effortlessly flow out, and the same way your ideas will come out. So that's kind of the way how I do things. I've found success because I've tried it out with a couple of clients, both in the e-commerce as well as in the client-based businesses.
Awesome. That's great advice. And it is something that does take some thought. And that's where you may not be an English major to be able to do that, but it does take some thought to do that. But when you can figure that out, when you can get those analogies and when you can get those stories done, you can connect with people in a whole different way. And that's what I want to ask you. The next question is, a lot of people think when they're writing emails, you have to be this English major, you have to be a university educated person. We talked about it before we started recording. It's the totally opposite of that. Give some thought into where people should be writing at what level and what their experience should be if they're writing emails.
Yeah. As I said earlier, people have this notion that when you write emails, you have to be this genius, sort of, college level, high IQ expert, but that's actually not the case. As I said, it's about bonding with people. And I guess if it comes to, what grade or what level of English you have to communicate, if you can write an email, or if you can communicate at the 6th grade level, you can write emails. It doesn't have to be that hard. What you have to do is just convey your point, create an insight. As I said, just make sure that you do 3 things. You need to educate, you need to entertain, and you place a pitch. Doing those 3 things, you can immediately you can immediately create better emails, because in terms of like communication and in terms of copy, which is email is about it, it's driven by copy, it's driven by sales copy, and copy is just sales in the written word. So when you're trying to point out why they should buy, the more clear it gets, the easier it is the easier it is to make a sale. So for example, if I were to like, okay, if you were to like to describe a real estate, and I say a condo is okay, this beautiful 3 grand, it's 3,000 feet, it won't resonate really with a person, because all they can imagine is the land. What is it going to do for them? Versus if you say that, okay, this is near a school where your kids can grow up, let them imagine the benefit of having that condo and having that piece of land. And if you describe those benefits and let them imagine, then that particular email would pull them, versus that email that sounds like it comes from a professor.
Exactly. And if it's too technical, it'll turn away a lot of people. And if it's too salesy, it'll turn away a lot of people. And that's where the conversational style emails are the ones that I like. And same with my blogs. When I started writing years ago, I always thought, I'm not a good writer. I did okay in English in school, and I wasn't top marks for that. But I realized if I write the way that I think and I write the way that I speak, when people read it, it will be like having a conversation with me. And I started realizing that, and then I started learning about copywriting. It's about the conversation. It's about creating the story and the images, and it's not about writing the best sales pitch or about writing the most technical email. It's about creating the conversations and, like you said, creating the stories that connect with people. And if you can do that, most of us know how to at least connect with people. And if they're in real estate, if you don't know how to connect with people, you probably shouldn't be in the business, because we're in the business of connecting with people. So you have to learn to take those stories, convert them into emails that are going to get people to open them and keep coming back. So it does take work, like we said, but it is well worth it. So can you share some of the things that people should be looking for as they write them, for things that they can look for small tweaks or small changes that they could do right away? Like if someone's looking to get into email marketing right now and they want to make a couple of changes, they may not jump into full on copywriting, but what can they do to just make some simple changes?
Yeah, the first thing is, don't try to force yourself to create for ideas. Try to hunt for ideas. Go throughout your day and list out things that you want to share with your subscribers. So for me is that I don't think of when I'm writing, I already have the idea that on what my email or what my ad is about. So I don't because at the end of the day, copy is actually assembled. So sales copy, the things that we write in emails, it's actually assembled. It's like a puzzle piece. So if you've ever seen a puzzle piece, you don't get the entire picture at once, right?
Yep.
You put each puzzle piece at a time, and it all comes down to research. So one of the advice that I would give if you are trying to get into email marketing is to hunt for ideas. It doesn't have to be complicated. For example, it could be a funny video that you can see on YouTube. It could be your favorite show on Netflix. It could be it could be really anything that you think of, as long as it's something that your market is familiar with, and it's not something that's strange. It's something that would provoke curiosity to them. And then you can pitch it in a way. Again, it all goes back to the framework of educating, entertaining, and pitching. And for example, if you had this story in you wherein, let's say that you're promoting a condo, for example, and then you want to promote this condo, and you really have no idea how to do it. So maybe, for example, you had this story in your early age, when you were a child, wherein you used to walk to school, and then you'd really hate it because you had to walk in the rain. So you come across this big condo, and you see these kids that are being chauffeured away to their schools. It's so near, and you had to walk like a mile, or maybe you can use that entire story, wrap it around in an entertaining way, and then you pitch that condo and tell them, okay, if you don't want your if you feel like or maybe you can relate to this, then go ahead and let me know if this resonated with you. And if you'd like more details about it, then click here.
Yeah.
So it's really that simple, finding experiences, finding really just content is everywhere. Finding ideas is really just everywhere. You just have to hunt for it. And that by the time when you're sitting and writing, you just have to use those ideas that you have in your list. So I guess one advice is that really list down your ideas instead of like thinking of them right from the top of your head when you're writing.
Yeah.
Do the research in advance so that by the time you're writing, it's just so easy, and then the words just flow.
Exactly. And I think also for real estate agents to look outside of our industry for ideas, like you said, is key. A lot of times agents get hung up on every email has to be about real estate, about what we think people want to hear. And the reality is people connect with things in different ways outside of real estate. You could take something about the Game of Thrones show you just watched, or something you saw at Walmart, or experience you just had at Starbucks or whatever. And you can take those experiences and create stories around that. Like you said, wrapping them around something that you're trying to promote or sell or get in front of people, but it doesn't have to be just real estate specific. And if it's always real estate, people will tune out or they won't be interested. When you create kind of life stories and use those, will help elevate you and really grow your list and grow your reach as well. So we always wrap up with the last piece of advice. So what's one last piece of advice that you give our viewers if they're thinking about getting better at their email marketing?
Yeah, so my best advice is that for the people that are listening right now is you really change your perspective about writing. So growing up, most people think that writing is a chore, right? Because earlier on when you were in college, or maybe when you were in high school, you got that, you annoying English teacher that made you want to write essays and poems and research papers. That's sort of boring stuff that you don't really like.
Yeah.
But what I'm really trying to point out is if you really want to optimize sales in your real estate business, there comes a point where you actually need to know a little bit of sales copy. You don't have to be a master at it, but you just have to know the basic principles of how to persuade people to buy from you. So my biggest advice is that when you are taking the time to write an email, make sure that you have this mindset that it's an investment. Because for every email or ad that you put up, that's actually going to give you a positive ROI in the return. Because for every email you send, it's a potential sale. So you might not make that sale today, but the longer and longer you send out emails, the more frequent, and the more you share your depth of experience, the higher your ROI is going to be. And then another tip that I am going to give if I were to start writing emails is to stop writing and editing at the same time and just, finish your draft, get that idea across. So I have this saying when I'm writing a draft, just write it now and then edit later.
Yep.
So if you can resist that urge to press that backspace button, you'll actually, it's actually a great technique. And then I guess if there's like a website that can do that for you, just go to draftin.com. And then there's an option there where you can click on the Hemingway mode. That will actually disable your backspace button, and that will allow you, try it out,
cool.
and then, try it out, and then you'll see that your writing would be more effortless. It would be seamless because you're trusting your creative brain versus your critical brain. Because when it comes to writing and editing, it's two different phases of the brain. So when you're writing, you're trusting your creative brain. Right. So those are the ideas. That's the voice inside of your head. That voice when you say, okay, when I read this is how I say it. So you listen to that voice. Don't judge it. Don't say that it's bad. Just, get that idea across and get that first draft finished. And then when you're finished with that draft, just close it out, save it to a Google Doc or save it somewhere, and then give it time to sit. Because the more time that you spend away from your writing, the better it's going to be. So those are the two pieces of advice that I would give.
That's awesome. I will definitely have to check that out. I am one of those people who likes to free flow and write, but then sometimes I do kind of go back and edit because I always think I'll save myself time later to edit later. But if I'm trying to get better at it, obviously that's a smart move. So that's awesome. We always wrap up with a best book. So what's one book that you'd recommend that's had an impact on your life or you think would have an impact on our viewers' lives?
Yeah, so as a writer, I have read like a ton of books, so it actually depends on the usage. So if it's writing copy, I would highly recommend this little known book for direct response copywriting. It's called Take Their Money by Cal Milligan. And
Mm.
what I really love about it is that that particular book, after I read it, it was like I can see the matrix. Like, no joke. Like
Yeah.
I could really see what what I needed to put in every single line of copy,
Mm.
because it explains the four basic emotions that every single piece of copy, that every single line of your email or ad should convey in order to persuade someone to buy from you. And I guess if it's for personal development, really what I'm looking for is something that could improve my life. I'm currently reading a classic called, Extreme Ownership
Yep.
by Jocko Willink. So it's a great book because it teaches you, to own up to your mistakes and how you can learn from it. I haven't really finished the entire thing, but it has tons of value. And I guess if you wanna, if you wanna find something that makes you improve 1%, that gets you 1% better every day, I would really recommend that book.
Awesome. I'll put those in the show notes so our viewers can check them out. And how can our viewers check out what you're up to, connect with you, and find out more about what you do?
Yeah, so I'm pretty active in social media. So the places that you can connect with me are Facebook and LinkedIn. My name there is just Gerrick Wayne. But I guess in the next couple of weeks, I'll be producing more content on Twitter. So if you really want to give me a follow and connect with me there, feel free to connect with me at Gerrick_Wayne.
Awesome. Gerrick, I really appreciate you being on the show, sharing your insights and your wisdom and experience. And I know if our agents do apply some of these strategies and techniques, they will definitely see an increase in their business. So thank you for bringing that to our audience and really sharing your passion with them as well.
Awesome. I really hope that they get really good value with this. And again, if ever they do have questions, they can reach out to me on any of my social media platforms. I'm always open to help, and I'm always open to give advice.
Awesome. We'll put your information in the show notes as well. So thank you for being on, and I'm looking forward to chatting more with you.
Awesome. Thanks for having me, Ryan.
Thanks for checking out today's episode. If you'd like more videos like this, be sure to like and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Check out our Facebook page and our other social media channels. Looking forward to bringing you more great content like this, and happy farming.